I remember the exact moment my father asked for the money, not because his voice was loud or angry, but because it was calm in a way that felt almost rehearsed. We were sitting in the living room of the house I had grown up in, the same worn-out couch, the same slightly crooked coffee table, the same walls that had seen every version of me, from a child who needed everything to an adult who had learned to give too much. "I've been thinking," he said, folding his hands together like he always did when he wanted to sound reasonable. That sentence alone made my chest tighten. It usually meant a decision had already been made, and I was just there to hear it. My mother sat beside him, quiet, her eyes focused on a loose thread on the cushion. She kept pulling at it gently, like she didn't want to be part of whatever was about to happen. "Thinking about what?" I asked. My father leaned forward slightly. "You've been living here for 2 years now. As an adult." I blinked, confused by where this was going. "I moved back because you asked me to," I said. "When things were bad." He nodded, but his expression didn't soften. "And we appreciated that," he replied. "But that doesn't change the fact that you've been living here without paying rent." The words hit me strangely, like they didn't fully make sense at first. "I've been helping with groceries, bills." "That's not the same," he cut in. "We did the calculations. If we consider a fair rate, utilities included, it comes to about $15,000. The number hung in the air like something unreal. $15,000, I repeated slowly. "Yes," he said, "that would cover what you owe us." I stared at him, waiting for the part where he explained this was a misunderstanding or maybe a poorly delivered joke. But nothing came. His face remained steady, almost indifferent. "And the money I gave you?" I asked quietly. He frowned slightly. "What money?" I felt something twist inside me. "The $12,000, I said. "My savings. When you told me the bank was about to take the house." "That was different," he replied quickly. "Different." The word felt like a slap. "You called me that night," I said, my voice rising despite myself. "You said you didn't know what to do, that you might lose everything. I transferred everything I had because you needed it. And we didn't lose the house," he said. "So clearly it helped." "That doesn't mean it didn't matter," I shot back. My mother shifted beside him but still didn't speak. She kept her eyes down, as if avoiding mine could somehow make this easier. "That wasn't a loan," my father said. "You offered it." "I offered because you were my parents," I said. "Because I thought we were helping each other." "And we are," he replied. "Which is why it's only fair you pay your share." "Fair." The word sounded empty coming from him. I looked at my mother. "Do you agree with this?" She hesitated, then nodded slightly. "It's just, your father thinks it's time things are balanced." Balanced. Another word that didn't mean what it should have. I stood up because sitting there suddenly felt unbearable. "So you want $15,000 from me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "for living in the house I helped save." "You have a week," my father said, as if that settled everything. A week. Like I was some tenant who had fallen behind. I didn't argue anymore. There was nothing left to say that would change his mind. I went to my room, packed what I could that night, and left the next morning. No one stopped me. My father barely acknowledged it, just reminded me again not to forget what I owed. My mother stood in the hallway, watching me go, her expression unreadable. For the first 2 days after I left, anger was the only thing that made sense. It sat heavy in my chest, mixing with disbelief. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, trying to understand how things had shifted so far without me noticing. I had always been the one they relied on. The one who fixed things when they went wrong. The one who stayed late, gave more, and asked for less. And somehow, that had turned into something expected, something taken for granted. By the 3rd day, the anger started to fade. Not completely, but enough to make room for something else, clarity. I realized that if I gave them that money, nothing would change. There would always be another, fair, request, another situation where I was expected to sacrifice while they justified it. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to pay them. Exactly 1 week after that conversation, my phone rang. It was my mother. I stared at her name on the screen for a long moment before answering. Hello. Her voice sounded different, softer, uncertain. We need to talk. What about? I asked. It's your father, she said. There's been a problem with his work. And the mortgage, we're behind again. I closed my eyes, already knowing where this was going. We might lose the house, she added quietly. The same situation, the same fear, the same words, but something inside me didn't react the way it had before. There was no rush of panic, no immediate urge to fix things. What do you need? I asked. There was a pause. Then she said, we were hoping you could help. Of course. How much? I asked. 10,000. Less than what my father had demanded from me. I let out a slow breath. I'll come by, I said. When I walked back into the house, everything felt smaller, like I had somehow outgrown it in just a few days. My father looked older than I remembered, more tired, but there was still that same stubborn set to his jaw. We're glad you came, he said. I sat down across from him. You said you needed help. He nodded. Things are complicated right now. There was a brief silence before he added, about the rent. No, I said, cutting him off. He blinked, clearly not expecting that. No, I'm not paying you $15,000, I said calmly. His expression hardened. I don't owe you anything, I interrupted. I already paid when I gave you my savings. That was your choice, he snapped. And this is mine, I replied. The room fell quiet. You want my help now, I continued. But this time, it's going to be different. He frowned. What do you mean? I mean we put everything in writing, I said. The 12,000 I gave you before, that becomes a loan. Acknowledged. And this 10,000 you're asking for now, that's also a loan, with terms. We're family, he said sharply. Exactly, I replied, which is why this should have been handled properly from the start. He leaned back, clearly unhappy. That's not how we do things. No, I said, it's how you don't do things. Another silence settled over the room, heavier this time. You also dropped the rent demand, I added. Completely. And if we don't? He asked. I stood up. Then you figure this out on your own. For a moment, no one moved. Then my mother spoke, her voice quiet but firm. She's right. We both looked at her. She helped us before, she continued. We can't keep doing this. My father stared at her like he didn't recognize her. You're taking her side. I'm taking what's fair, she said. Something shifted in that moment. Not dramatically, not loudly, but enough. My father didn't argue right away. He just sat there, his expression tightening, as if he was finally realizing that the situation wasn't as simple as he wanted it to be. For the first time, he didn't have control of the conversation. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I had to give in. Just to keep the peace. I wasn't sure what would happen next. Whether they would agree, refuse, or try to find another way. But I knew one thing for certain. This time, I wasn't going to lose myself trying to save them.